Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another TEW2020 Experiment here. In today's video, we will be asking the question, what if some of WWE's biggest names jumped ship and went to AEW? I have moved 10 of WWE's biggest superstars, 5 male and 5 female, over to All Elite Wrestling. We're starting here in October of 2021. I will then simulate forward to Monday, week 1, January 2023. Just because I like having the year-end awards there, I think it gives a good place to start looking at things. And we'll see how they all got on. And these are the 10 names that have moved over. Starting with the men, we have the current WWE Champion, Big E, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, the current Universal Champion, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins. And on the women's side of things, we have the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka, as well, of course, as the Four Horsewoman, Bayley, the current Raw Women's Champion, Becky Lynch, the current SmackDown Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair, and Sasha Banks. 10 huge names, 10 big stars for WWE, all of them constantly in and around the title pictures whenever possible, really. But how will they fare over in All Elite Wrestling? As you can see, I've added the AEW TBS Championship in here as well, to give the women something else to fight for as well. But how will they get on? How will the Four Horsewomen and Asuka do, competing for that TBS and Women's World Championship, currently held by Britt Baker? And how will those 5 male superstars get on? How will the Tribal Chief do? How will the Legend Killer fare away from WWE after so long in this company, with the TNT and World titles to fight for? Will a tag team pop up perhaps? Will the Shield reform? That's a possibility with Jon Moxley over there. We'll have to wait and see. Without any further ado though, I'm going to simulate forward to Monday, week 1, January 2023. And we see the answer to the question, what if WWE's biggest names moved to All Elite Wrestling? And we're back here, Monday, week 1, January 2023. We've simulated forward 14 months, and in a good sign of how this has gone, I think, Seth Rollins has been declared Wrestler of the Year. So things clearly going very well for Seth Rollins over in All Elite Wrestling. Company of the Year, AEW, maybe a bit unsurprising with all the superstars they've brought in. Team of the Year, The Shield, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Rollins doing well as a singles competitor, but also part of The Shield with Roman Reigns, them reforming a tag team. We'll see, maybe tag team champs? We'll see. Match of the Year, Reigns and Rollins against Big E and Daniel Bryan. A very WWE match on AEW Rampage right there. As well as Asuka winning Female Wrestler of the Year. Clearly she's doing well in AEW as well. It's a good sign of how this experiment has gone, I think. Scrolling through it, nothing else. So let's go over to AEW and have a look, first of all, at the titles. And title-wise, Yuka Suzuki is the AEW TBS champion. The inaugural champion was Asuka, who defended it 7 times over the course of 4 months. She lost it to Leva Bates, who lost it to Sasha Banks, who held it for 4 months, defended it 5 times, and then she lost it to Banks, who held it for a few months, lost it to Leva Bates, and then lost it to Banks. So Banks and Asuka both gained championship gold there. Banks holding the TBS championship twice, Asuka once. The TNT title, Jon Moxley, the current champion. None of the WWE guys in history there, but Jon Moxley beat CM Punk, who beat Jon Moxley for that, so they've been feuding over the TNT title if you're interested. The Women's World title, Britt Baker lost it to Sky Blue, who lost it to Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch held it for 3 months, 5 defenses, but she lost it to Asuka, who's held it just over 3 months now, and defended it 8 times, doing very well with the belt. Asuka, a very good time in AEW, held the TBS title, and now holding the Women's World Championship. You can see why she won Female Superstar of the Year. AEW Tag Team Champion next. We're going to save the world for the end. And no reign for the Shield. The current champions, Matt Sydal and Mike Sydal. The Sydal brothers holding gold. Good for them. Good for those two. But finally, AEW World Champion, the big one, is Seth Rollins. Kenny Omega held the belt till April 2022. 14 defenses in that time before finally losing it to Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins held up 229 days, 9 defenses, having a hell of a time. You can see why he won the Wrestler of the Year. Seth Rollins flying in AEW, and also FTW World Champ. Anyone won that? Nope, still on Brian Starks, but Seth Rollins and Asuka, the big winners here, you have to say, as the AEW and AEW Women's Champions, respectively. I'll go to my shortlist, and we'll just go through each of them one by one. We'll start with Bayley while she's here. How's she getting on? Match history-wise in AEW, Bayley has fought 44 times, 39 wins and 5 losses. Bayley kept very strong. Her third match was for the AEW Women's World Title. She lost to Sky Blue though, and she had one more match: Becky Lynch versus Asuka versus Charlotte Flair versus Bayley for the AEW Women's World Title. A big main event on Rampage there for an 88. Sounds like a really good match, to be honest. She was in a match for the AEW TBS title against Banks, Conti and Ford, but Banks won that one at All Out. And she had one final AEW Women's title match, one-on-one with Asuka, for her highest rated match, a 92 on Rampage in December. A really good match there. Asuka with the 94, Bayley with the 72, good match. Bayley, a decent year, a few world title opportunities, mainly though just in and around things. Average match rating of 70, 39 wins, 5 losses. Bayley having a good time, I think, AEW. I think it's safe to say. Whilst Becky Lynch, looking at her match history, has fought 58 times, 46 wins, 12 losses, average match rating of 85, highest rating 98. Where is that 98? There it is, AEW Rampage, Asuka versus Becky Lynch for a 98. What a match between these two. Asuka defeating Becky Lynch to retain her title. Becky Lynch, I'm assuming, having a lot of world title opportunities. She lost to Sky Blue at Revolution in March of 2022. She lost to Sky Blue again on an episode of Dynamite in April. She lost to Sky Blue a third time on an episode of Rampage in June. And then over 3 consecutive weeks here on Dynamite, Becky Lynch defeated Sky Blue for the Women's World title. And then she defeated Asuka to retain it. Then she defeated Rio to retain it over 3 weeks. And then Becky Lynch beating Asuka to retain it again for a 90. You can see how her average rating is so high. All the light blue matches she's been having. She defeated Killing King by count-out to retain. Defeated Asuka, Charlotte and Bayley in a fatal 4-way. Defeated Lynch, Charlotte and Baker. Eventually losing the world title in a fatal 4-way to Asuka, also featuring Charlotte and Britt Baker though. These are some really good matches. She lost that one-on-one match to Asuka. She lost a fatal 4-way with Big Swan and Leah Hirsch in there. Lost to Asuka one-on-one again. And no world title matches after that, but I mean, Becky Lynch, people often say about going to AEW, you're going to have these big dream matches, these great matches, and Becky Lynch, I don't think you can argue she's done that. Highest rating in 98, lowest rating 74, average rating of an 85. She held the AEW Women's World title for 3 months, 5 defences, loads of great matches for it. Becky Lynch, done very well in AEW, you have to say here. No surprise really from the man. Also loaned to Impact temporarily, so I'm just going to go back to the match history and have a look who she fought in Impact. Company, Impact Wrestling. She had a match with Mickie James, continuing on from that La Luchadora match, little thing they had on SmackDown back in 2016, I think. 51 for James, 95 for Lynch, and 89. Lynch putting James over. Becky Lynch having the time of her life out of WWE. Next up, over to one of the male superstars, current WWE champion, Big E. How's he got on in AEW? No titles for him, but yeah, he's not wrestled that much. 19 matches. He had a TNT title match, a fatal 4-way. Sammy Guevara, John Moxley, Big E, and Christian Cage. What a fatal 4-way! A tables match. Sammy Guevara retaining the title over 3 big names. A big moment there for Sammy Guevara, you have to say. Then going on matches here and there. He lost to John Moxley for the AEW TNT title one-on-one for a 92. He had an AEW World title match against Seth Rollins. Rollins won that one. And he had another World title match against Seth Rollins, and Rollins won that one as well. But the main event of All Out, Rollins, Big E, Rollins getting the win, but Big E in the main event, in that World title scene. Average rating of 86, really good. Highest rating of 99. Where is that? Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins against Big E and Daniel Bryan, yeah, match of the year. What a match that sounds like it was. And he also had a 98 in there, Rollins and Reigns against Bryan Danielson and Big E in a cage match. They did a rematch, and it was nearly as good. What a performance from those 4 guys. As Big E, maybe not doing as well in AEW. Not being used as much match-wise, only 19 matches, but still, when used, doing really well. A 99, a 98, lots of light blue, average rating of 86. A few world title matches in there, a few TNT title matches in there. Big E having a good time in AEW, enjoying himself. And then we go to Charlotte Flair, the current SmackDown Women's Champion. And I can see in the recent news headlines 2 things. I can see that her and Andrade broke up, and I can see that she was injured of week 3, January 22, 2022, so not long into the simulation. She was out for about 2 months, which isn't too long at least. Looking at her match history here, and she still fought a lot of matches in 2022. TBS title match, Fatal 4-Way. She lost, Asuka retaining. Banks beat her for the title as well in a Fatal 4-Way. She had a triple threat match, Asuka, Charlotte and Sky Blue. Maybe Asuka and Charlotte focusing on each other, allowing Sky Blue to retain there. She lost the TBS title match to Leva Bates. Fatal 4-Ways we've mentioned for women's world titles with Lynch and Asuka beating her, and Fatal 4-Ways with, Britt Baker, Becky Lynch, Asuka, Bayley and all that in there. Lost 1-on-1 to Asuka on Rampage. And that was it. Up and down year. Lowest rating of 66, highest rating of 94 though. A 1-on-1 match between Asuka and Charlotte Flair in an episode of Dynamite back in September. Average rating of 81. Charlotte having a good time. Charlotte though, no gold for the Queen in AEW. Maybe a bit surprising. Asuka and Sasha Banks being pushed more so by All Elite Wrestling. Charlotte less so. Charlotte's still being used a lot, as well as the majority being wins for her, but no championship gold for the Queen. Maybe a bit surprising as we move on to Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre was no gold for him, but still, match history-wise, how did he get on in 2022 for AEW? Only 20 matches, 10 wins, 10 losses, 50-50 booking from Drew McIntyre. It's like he never left. His first match of 2022 in January was a triple threat match for the AEW World Title. Kenny Omega defeating McIntyre and Bryan Danielson. I'm sure was a really good match. He got an 84, but still sounds amazing. Also, at Double or Nothing, had a TNT title match where he lost to Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley being a lot of big names with that for that TNT title. Having a great time. I mean, he lost it to CM Punk and he won it back from Punk. So Jon Moxley's TNT title run sounds like it was an absolute success. And there was no more title matches for Drew McIntyre. Still in and around it, having great matches. Highest rating of 95, which was for a match between him and Miro against Moxley and Rollins. The Shield well and truly reformed as a stable. Ladder match between them got that 95. Average rating of 87. McIntyre not being used as much, but still doing really well, having great matches when he is used. Whilst Asuka, the big star, the Women's World Champion, looking at her title reigns, AEW TBS Champion, she held that for 4 months, 7 defences, and current AEW Women's World Champion. Won it in September, and still holding it today. Asuka, complete success in AEW, you have to say. Match history-wise, in 2022, 64 matches. They really love using Asuka, and how can you blame them with that average rating of 86 and the highest rating of 98? Where is that 98, I wonder? I'm just going to try and scan this page and see if I can see it. I feel completely blind right now. She's had so many matches. I think that's a second page as I try and find this 98. Oh, where is it? There it is. Asuka, Becky Lynch for that AEW Women's World title. So I'm just going to show the title matches because there's so many. And look at that. I mean, 4 TBS title matches this year. Only losing it in a fatal 4-way. She might not even been pinned in that one by Sasha Banks. Losing it to Sasha Banks defeating her in a rematch and then the fatal 4-way. Then Asuka, a month later, in the Women's World title division, eventually winning that. Lost to Becky Lynch a few times. Finally winning the title all out and holding on to it ever since. Having amazing matches and having 2 great title reigns over in All Elite Wrestling. Asuka, I don't think you can try and say hasn't done well in AEW. And now one of the big names to look at, I'm very curious about, Randy Orton. Randy Orton, of course, a big WWE company man. Been there his whole career. Finally moving on for it. Finally going to a different company, AEW. There were no titles for him in AEW though. Match history-wise, if we have a look, Randy Orton, only 18 matches. This seems to be a theme. The male superstars here not fighting that much. Randy Orton, a negative win-loss record here. 8 wins, 10 losses. But still, average rating of 85, having amazing matches. Highest rating of 94 for a match against Roman Reigns and Chris Jericho in a triple threat on Rampage, which Roman Reigns won. Randy Orton, quite a few title matches in here as well. A TNT title match that we mentioned earlier. A TNT title match, fatal 4-way with MJF, Bryan Danielson and Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara getting the win there. Sammy Guevara had some big wins in his TNT title reign. He lost to Kenny Omega in a tables match for the world title for an 89. Sounds great. And then Seth Rollins defeated him and Omega in a triple threat match on Rampage for 88. He lost to Moxley for the TNT title. Jon Moxley's TNT title reign does sound like it banged, didn't it? He beat Big E. He beat Drew McIntyre. He beat Randy Orton. He only lost it to CM Punk and then he beat CM Punk for it. This TNT title division sounds absolutely phenomenal. And speaking of CM Punk defeated Jon Moxley, Orton and Miro in a fatal 4-way at All Out. What a fatal 4-way I'm sure that was. Randy Orton not being used much in AEW, but when he is, putting on bangers. Average rating of 85, so many high 80s and 90s in here. Average rating being dragged down by a 61 against Michael Nakazawa, but still, Randy Orton having some fun. Maybe, with his age, left WWE, went to AEW, negotiated a contract with less appearances, understandable from the Legend Killer, but still, when used, putting on bangers. And that's what this is about, isn't it? Whilst next we look at the Tribal Chief, the Universal Champion, Roman Reigns. Such a dominant run in WWE right now, but no AEW titles to show for it following the move over to All Elite Wrestling. Match-wise, though, he's had the most matches of the male superstars so far, with 35. But still, in 2022, average rating of 88, the highest average rating. Look at all that light blue. Roman Reigns, banger after banger. You have to think that average rating would be even higher if it wasn't for that 63 match against Hideki Okatani in September. But still, starting the year, fatal 4-way on Rampage in February for the AEW World title in a ladder match. Kenny Omega beating him, Christian Andrade, in a match I'm sure was amazing. Him and Pac lost to the FTR for the World Tag titles. Odd pairing between Pac and Reigns, but still. He lost to Moxley and Jericho. He lost to Moxley in a triple threat with Jericho for the TNT title. Once again, Moxley's TNT title reign does sound like it's slapped some of the matches he's had. But he's also had a TNT title match in October. CM Punk defeated him by DQ. Reigns getting disqualified so close to the title. And after that, he only had one more title match. It was for the AEW World title, though. Rollins defeating Guevara, Reigns, and Pac in a fatal 4-way. Roman Reigns' highest rating at 99 for that tag team match we've looked at quite a few times now. But still, so many 90s in it. Roman Reigns having great matches in AEW, but finding no championship success, the Tribal Chief. Whilst in WWE, of course, his Universal title reign gone on for well over a year now. But nothing of the sort over in All Elite Wrestling. Reigns maybe a bit disappointed with that in himself as we look at Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks, two-time TBS champion. She's had a nice time of things in AEW. I don't think you can try and argue with that one. Sasha Banks, how many times did she fight in 2022? She had 51 matches. She won 36 of them. Average rating of 76. Highest rating of 93, though, in a match on Rampage in October as Asuka and Ruby Soho defeated her and Becky Lynch. What a tag team match I'm sure that was. Sasha Banks holding the TNT title for quite a while. She had a Women's World title match at the start of the year. She lost to Sky Blue in a cage match. Sky Blue beat so many big names in her reign as well. AEW pushing her hard. Winning the TBS title against Asuka. Eventually losing it to Leva Bates. But she won it back from her. And ending the year as TBS champion. She retained it against Conti, Bayley and Ford in a fatal 4-way. She beat Red Velvet and Britt Baker in a triple threat to retain it. She beat Julia Hart, she beat Kira Hogan, she beat Red Velvet and Bunny in a triple threat, and finally, in December, losing it to Yuka Sakazuki in a tables match on Rampage. Big moment there for Yuka Sakazuki. She got a 56, Banks got a 79, but still, Banks putting Sakazuki over hard there, and then ending the match against Ruby Soho one more time, beating her. Sasha Banks, a good time of things for the boss in AEW, 2 TBS title reigns. Maybe in 2023 she would push on to that Women's World title division and challenge Asuka for that. She beat Asuka for the TBS title. Could she do it for the Women's World title? I'd like to think that's where AEW would be going with that. But time for the final superstar, the wrestler of the year, the man who clearly has had a great time of things in All Elite Wrestling, Seth freaking Rollins. AEW World Champion. Won it in April. Still holding it to this day. What a long run he's had. Kenny Omega into Rollins. AEW do love their long world title runs, though, so that's understandable. Match history, Rollins, 37 matches this year, 34 wins, only 3 losses. Average rating of 87, highest rating for that 99 for that tag team match we've seen quite a few times now. Rollins first in that world title scene in March. Kenny Omega defeating him and Punk in a triple threat match. But then in another triple threat match a month later in April, Rollins defeating Omega and Randy Orton to win the gold. And then in May, a few weeks later, defeating CM Punk to retain it. What a start to his title reign. Then going forwards, he defeated Sammy Guevara to retain it, a double or nothing. Sammy Guevara had a great TNT title reign, moving up to the World title division. Can't beat Rollins, though, as Rollins holds onto the belt. Defeats Miro in a ladder match on Dynamite in August. Defeats Punk in June on Dynamite. and then defeats Miro in a ladder match on Dynamite in August to retain it. Defeats Big E to retain it. We saw that All Out for an 87. Great match between those two. And then Fatal 4-Way, he defeats Guevara, Kenny Omega, and Malachi Black to retain it on Rampage. I mean, that just sounds like a really good Fatal 4-Way to me. And speaking of Fatal 4-Ways, he had another one on Rampage in November, defeating Guevara, Reigns, and Pac, another great sounding Fatal 4-Way. At Full Gear, oh, what a main event I'm sure that was. Seth Rollins, Daniel Bryan, they've had so many great matches in WWE. They did it for the AEW World title for a 97, 92 for each of them. They're getting a 97. Rollins retained. And in Rollins' final match of the year on Rampage, he defeated Big E to retain the title for an 89. The most successful, I think, you'd have to say, is Seth Rollins and Asuka here. But Seth Rollins, above them all, the wrestler of the year, AEW World Champion since April, putting on banger after banger after banger. Looking at the company wars, AEW still second, but, you know, with those big names, you'd think they'd push on. And also, looking at the Power 500, because I'm intrigued how they all did. Rollins, of course, number 1, and Asuka, number 3, a bit unsurprising there. Reigns, number 5, Big E, 7, Becky, 8, Drew, 9, Charlotte, 12, Randy, 14. Oh god, there's all so high up here. Have I missed anyone? Like Rollins, Reigns, Big E, Drew, Randy, and then the women you got Asuka, Becky, Charlotte, Sasha coming in at 22, and Bayley. So 9 of them in the top 22, whilst Bayley, you have to think is somewhere not that far down. I'll try and fight. There's so many names. There she is. Bayley, 79. Still in the top 100, but still, that top 10 slots occupied by Drew McIntyre, Becky Lynch, Big E, Roman Reigns, Asuka, and Seth Rollins. 6 of the 10 superstars in the top 10 spaces here of the Power 500. You really can't try and say that they weren't a success. AEW utilising these top 10 superstars so well. All of them doing amazing. A really interesting look at what would happen, I think, here. I'm also just intrigued. I'll have a look at what the WWE title scene is now. They lost their 4 main champions, so I remember a bit intrigued what they did. AJ Styles won Money in the Bank. John Cena won the Rumble for a 3rd time. Alexa Bliss won Money in the Bank, and Bianca Belair won the Rumble for a 2nd year in a row. And then looking at the titles, the Universal Championship, Rey Mysterio won the vacant belt. He lost it to John Cena. John Cena's 17th world title reign ended by current champion Goldberg. Oh, you love to see WWE making new stars, don't you? Whilst the SmackDown Women's title, Charlotte, of course, vacated it. It was won by Nikki Ash. Held it for a few months. Lost it to Shayna Baszler. Held it for a bit more. Who lost it to B-Fab. B-Fab, yes. Hit row. Smashing it there, as B-Fab did lose it to Alexa Bliss, though. Nice little title scene there. As the Raw Women's title, Carmella won the vacant belt, lost it to Rhea Ripley, lost it to Naomi, doing well. And the WWE Championship won by Cesaro. Cesaro got his moment following Big E's stripping of it. He held it till March, week 3, which I think would have been WrestleMania, losing it to Riddle. Cesaro versus Riddle for the WWE title at WrestleMania. Sounds like a great match. Riddle winning the big one at Mania, eventually though losing it to the current champion, Damian Priest. An interesting look at the men's and women's main title scenes, losing these 10 big names. I think that's going to be it for today, though. I hope you've enjoyed this look at what if 10 of WWE's biggest superstars moved to AEW. If you have any ideas for future experiments, then feel free to leave them down in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel for more, and thank you for watching.